Hey, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for Small Press Big Success, how to turn your small press or independent personally published book into a bestseller using the proven techniques of book promotion. What your publishing deal may be may not be the six-figure advance you've dreamed of. It might be something with an independent press, or maybe you have decided to self-publish. But you can still have a lot of success with your book, but it has to do with book promotion. The very greatest book ever written will not sell unless people know about it. And there are some great techniques to help people know about your book. You're going to want to grab a pencil and something to write on. I know you've got it handy because you're writers. You're going to want to have that with you. I have a lot of information for you today, and you will want to take notes on all of this. I'd like to start, though, with introducing myself for those who don't know me. Again, my name is Victoria Wilcox, and I'm here with the Booth Museum today. I'd like to introduce myself by way of one of the fun modern methods of book promotion, and that is a video presentation. And this video is from a television spot I did last year. So this is going to run for just a couple of minutes. And I'd like you to see how, whoops, I don't want to do that yet. Back up, back up. I'm new to this webinar thing, folks, so bear with me. Here we go. This is from a TV spot a couple of years ago or last year, and it's going to take just a couple of minutes. You'll see several elements of book promotion in this and also figure out who I am.
Happy Monday, everyone. You're watching Atlanta & Company. I'm Christine Pilara. The historical novel, Gone West, is the second book in the Southern Sun, the Saga of Doc Holliday trilogy by Georgia author Victoria Wilcox. The book is the story of how a gentleman becomes an outlaw, and how an outlaw becomes a lawman, and how a Southern son named John Henry becomes a legend named Doc Holliday. Wilcox joins us now this morning to tell us all about it and her efforts in maintaining historical sites. Welcome.
Thank you, Christine. So nice to be with you today.
Well, it's great to have you here. And let's talk about the whole, you have this trilogy here.
Yes.
But talk about the lesson of the Southern Sun and why Doc Holliday is so important to the South.
You know, it's funny. The name Doc Holliday conjures images of the Wild Wild West and a gunfight at Tombstone, Arizona at the OK Corral. But, you know, so few people know that before he was a Western legend, he was a Southern son. He was born in Griffin, Georgia in the last days before the Civil War, and actually grew up here during Civil War and Reconstruction and practiced dentistry and lived in Atlanta for a while.
Really?
So he's really an Atlanta character, yeah.
And how did you become interested in his life and his legacy?
You know, it started for me with the house. My husband went to dental school in Atlanta, and that brought us from the West to Atlanta. And like everybody else, I was looking for Gone with the Wind everywhere. You know,
Right.
I want to see Scarlett walking up and down the street.
Kidding.
And Gone with the Wind is, you know, it's gone with the wind. It's not him anymore. Then we moved south to Fayette County, and I found this beautiful old home that looked just like Gone with the Wind to me. And it was in a bit of a state of disrepair. I could tell it was old. I couldn't tell how really old this thing was. And I just fell in love with it. And it was a beautiful white columned antebellum home. I hope we have a picture we can look at. It was called the Holiday. It is now called the Holiday Dorsey Fife House Museum. But when I saw it, it was just called the Old Fife House. People had forgotten its history. And it was actually, people were talking about tearing it down to make way for a new parking lot. So I did what, you know, any lover of history would do.
Sure.
I started a community action group and then a nonprofit organization to save that house and turn it into a museum of history. So in the process of doing that, I learned that it was connected to Doc Holliday. His uncle owned this house. He was a medical doctor in Georgia. And Doc Holliday, the Western character, grew up playing in that house.
Oh
and
my
I was stunned. And
It's fate that this is somebody that you have interest in, and then
it might be.
Really?
Well, people who like numerology might say it's fate. I was actually born on the day he died.
Oh
So
my
who
gosh.
knows?
Wow, really?
But he, I also found that he was related through marriage to Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind. And one of the cousins he used to play with in that house was rumored to become his sweetheart when they were teenagers. And she became the model for Melanie in Gone with the Wind. So I was
6 degrees.
oh my goodness, I was amazed. It was like the Old South meeting up with the Wild West and falling in love.
Okay.
And I was a writer, and I thought, well, I need to write this story. This has got to be told. And so I started what I thought was going to be just one huge book, and it ended up being a trilogy of historical fictions because it's just immense. The story was epic.
I bet. What are the challenges of writing historical fiction? I can only imagine.
Yeah. You know, what I found challenging was that I thought that I knew this Gone with the Wind connection, and I would play on that, and I would dramatize the scenes of his life, things that we didn't know. I would dramatize like all fiction writers do.
Right.
But I thought that I would be able to base my stories on the known history, and as it turned out, the known history was mostly wrong about his life.
Really?
It was all very skewed. And so I ended up spending 18 years researching and writing about his life. I traveled all over the country. I went every place he'd been. And now I speak around the country about the true history of Doc Holliday. So these books are the best history that's ever been put out, mixed with all the drama and fiction that we love, with love stories.
Oh, fantastic.
Drama. It's great.
Well, what are some of the misconceptions, or what are some of the things that we thought that weren't necessarily the case about him?
I would say that the biggest misconception is that he died of consumption in the West, which we think was tuberculosis. And that's part of his legend, that he was just coughing all the time down the Stout West.
Right.
Yeah, and that he didn't care if he lived or died because he was dying anyway. And that turns out to be not true. He actually traveled all around the West from one hot springs resort to another, trying to save his own life. But the bigger thing is, his legend says that he left Georgia because he was dying of consumption. And actually, that legend started about 50 years after he died. That's not why he left Georgia. So his whole story was different. And he was such an iconic son of the South. Raised during the Civil War, a young man during Reconstruction. He's kind of the epitome of what a Southern young man was at that time. Bigoted, racist, sexist, all of those things. And yet went west and had to learn a whole new way of life.
Right.
Had to reinvent his culture. Yes, and reinvent his thinking. You know, he really came out a more modern man right at the end of the Wild West.
And congratulations, as I was meeting you before the show, tell everybody about the award you have for the first book.
For the first book, Inheritance, which is the first book in the trilogy, I was just named Georgia Author of the Year for a first novel.
Fantastic. For a first novel.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'm so honored. Georgia is just rich with wonderful writers, so I'm amazed.
That is wonderful. So what can we expect? So Inheritance was the first, Gone West. What adventures can we, just give us a little tease.
Okay, Gone West really is how that Southern boy becomes a Western legend. And so it is filled with all of the Western characters he met. Wyatt or Bat Masterson. It has a great romance with his mistress out west. There's gunfighting and drinking and shooting and gambling and all the things that you want out of a Western, seen through this Southern boy's eyes. So it's a novel look at that. And I'm just thrilled. Both books have been getting fantastic reviews.
That is wonderful. When's the third one come out?
The third one comes out next May. It's called The Last Decision. And it takes his life from just before the OK Corral to the end of his life out west. And then it brings it back home again, because there's an untold story about Doc coming back.
About him coming back to the South, coming home. Fantastic. Thank you. Will you come back for that one?
I would love to.
We would love to have you. Thank you so much.
It's been marvelous.
It's been so fun. And guess what? You get to meet her. You can meet Victoria when she appears at the Decatur Book Festival Writing Workshop. That's at 3:30, August 29th, at the Historical Novel Panel, 5:30 p.m., August 30th. So that's two places, right?
Yes. And
okay. I think I made those run in together, but that was too good. And
I will also be September 3rd at the Booth Museum of Western Art, which is a fabulous museum in Cartersville.
Oh,
and that's open to the public, an hour-long presentation and lunch. So that's a great one.
Where can people go get more information on you?
My website, VictoriaWilcoxBooks.com. Thank you for asking.
Excellent, of course. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for listening through that. I wanted you to see that because that little TV spot included a lot of the basics that we're going to talk about today, the basic elements of book promotion. TV is not the only way to promote your book. It's one of the ways. Here are some of the other ways to promote your book. I'm going to list these here, but then we will talk about in detail each of these elements of book promotion. Platform and persona. Platform and persona, two different things. We'll talk about both of those. Social media, we all know what that is, Facebook, etc. Print media, of course, magazines, newspapers, we'll come to that. TV, radio, that was a TV spot you saw, although that actually included lots of these different techniques. Personal appearances, and that would be bookstores and all, we'll come to that. And then something that it's my unique take on book promotion, and I call that selfless self-promotion, and we'll learn about that down toward the end. So, oh, excuse me, I think I see a question already amongst our audience members here. Yes, what's your question? I'm sorry to interrupt, but you lost me at the first point. What is platform and why do I need it? Great question. Thank you so much for asking that. Platform, you've heard about it a lot. Everybody needs platform. You may be concerned and confused about what that is. Let's talk about platform. A platform, dictionary definition, a platform is, one, a horizontal surface or structure raised above the level of the surrounding area. Got that. Two, a raised flooring or other horizontal surface, such as in a hall or meeting place, a stage for use by public speakers or performers. Or three, the declared principles, aims, etc. of a political party, an organization, or an individual. For instance, this man has a platform and a platform. He is standing on one platform, which is the wooden stage built for his speech, and he's speaking about another platform, which is his political and social goals. And this, of course, is somebody who was a friend to the West, Teddy Roosevelt, who used both of his platforms so well that he was elected twice as President of the United States. So he's standing on a platform and he's got his political platform. You see the difference between these two things? He's speaking about one platform while standing on a platform. So what is a platform as a writer? It's the place where you can be seen and heard, and what you have to say if you're seen and heard. In the social media world, which is where we're living now, your platform has many stages. There's lots of physical stages you can go to in the social media world. Here's your author platform. Here's where you can stand to be heard. Your web page. It's a thing you're going to stand on to be heard by the world. Your blog, Facebook, of course, Twitter, Goodreads, an Amazon author page. Print media is part of your platform, television, YouTube, and personal appearances. These are all the where you do it aspect of platform. Okay? That makes sense to everybody? I wish I could get questions immediately on that from you, so I hope to answer your questions before you actually get them. Okay, so in other words, these are the places where we can see you and find you. Every author needs to have these things. If you've written a great book, you've got to get it out there where people can see it. So these are the places where people can find you. That's the platform part. But probably 50% of this is also what you have to say when you're standing on your platform. So here's a little exercise I'd like you to think about. If you had a real platform right now, if somebody gave you a physical stage, downtown, whatever town you're living in, they built you a wooden platform like Teddy Roosevelt had, and you were allowed to stand up on the platform, what would you talk about? What would your thoughtful platform then be? For Teddy Roosevelt, it was his political opinions, his social agenda. What would your platform be if you had a place to stand on it? What would somebody want to hear you talk about? For me, my platform was at the time, for instance, in the TV spot you saw, my platform was historical preservation. Because I had found this old house and I'd helped to save this old house and turn it into a museum. And then I learned that that old house had stories behind it and the stories needed to be told. I probably would not have been invited on TV if I'd just written another story, but I had something to say. So I want you to take a moment here and write down what you think it is you have to say to the world. Now, I know TW writes wonderful books that have a spiritual element to them. He has something to say. Are you just telling stories? Or do you have something to say with those stories? And I think most of us do have something to say. So, I'm sorry, I see another question from our class. Hi, thank you so much for attending today. And what was your question? Okay, so I understand platform. Okay. But what's persona and how does that help to promote my books? All right, thank you. I appreciate the question very much. Platform and persona are two different things and both very important. Persona, here's a dictionary definition. One, persona is a person. Two, or it's a persona, the characters in a play, novel, etc. That's the people in your story, people in your book. Three, it could be the narrator or a character in a literary work. Sometimes the persona in a literary work is you telling a story. Four, a person's perceived or evident personality as that of a well-known official, actor, or celebrity, a personal image, a public role. Do we need to stop for a moment here, TW? Okay, we're hearing talking off screen. Do we need to do something here?
No, that was me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, well, welcome back. I want to make sure we weren't missing something here. Okay, you have your platform. Let's back up and talk about this again. You've got your platform, the place you're going to talk, and we will go through very carefully all the elements of that. But we want to get an overview here. And you have your platform. It's what you have to say if you're standing on that platform. And then there's also a persona. This is good news for those of you who feel like you don't have a platform. You may feel like, all I am is a writer. All I do is tell stories. I have nothing grander beyond this. Well, you can have your physical platform of your social media and all that. Maybe you don't have to have a political platform. Maybe you don't need something big socially. You may have a persona you can play on. And here are some famous authors who have been able to play on just a persona. They don't have a social platform. For instance, Stephen King. Now, Stephen King's persona, his name is Stephen King, the author is Stephen King, but he has a persona. His persona is, he's the scary book guy. Okay, well, here's another famous author, John Grisham. He doesn't have a social agenda. He's just writing stories, but his persona would be the legal thriller guy. We know when we pick up a John Grisham book, it's going to be a legal thriller. So it maybe has something to do with your genre. Here's probably the richest writer, maybe of all time, and certainly the best read, J.K. Rowling, who is obviously the Harry Potter lady. I don't think any of these people has a social agenda type of platform, but their names will always be linked with these things. Stephen King is always going to be the scary book guy. And John Grisham will always be the legal thriller guy. J.K. Rowling, to her benefit or detriment maybe, will always be the Harry Potter lady. Now that she's done with the Harry Potter series, she's been starting out into a new genre and intrigue and sort of spy novels. And she's had a bit of a rough time getting those rolling because people want it rolling. People want her to be the Harry Potter lady. So you don't have to have a platform to get a social type of agenda platform to get noticed. You do have to have a place to be noticed. That's the physical platform. You might just be able to play on your persona. What you need is that author persona. So what is an author persona to you? Your persona is your author self. Okay? For instance, I love this. Anna Mae Bullock is a quiet homebody who loves to cook and practices Buddhism. But when she steps on stage, she becomes Tina Turner, a singing and dancing tour de force. Her persona is Star. If you saw her walking around without makeup and without hair, you might not even recognize her. Her persona, however, you would recognize instantly. The writer you likely wears pajamas. The author you dresses up for a TV interview. Your author persona is the enhanced you that interacts with your readers and fellow publishing professionals. It's your business self. Your persona is you, only better. Now, I love when I meet with the writers at the Booth Writers Guild, and I see a lot of cowboy hats, for instance. Now, I don't know if these gentlemen all wear their cowboy hats and boots to their everyday jobs, but when they are acting on their persona of a Western writer, they dress the part. They're ready to present themselves to the world that way. That persona is very important. It's what's going to attract people into you and let people know what you're writing. Now, what if you have a split personality or a split personality? Oh, gosh, I don't want to do that one. Okay, sorry, I missed that one. We're going to just click on past here. I was going to take that exercise out for you. Okay, what if you have a split personality? Personality, isn't that cute? For instance, oh, hi. Jim, nice to see you this morning.
How you doing? I came around the other side of the table.
For anybody who is not fortunate enough to know, we have Jim Dunham with us, and he is the man, historian, artiste, director of historical projects at the Booth Museum of Western Art, and our gracious host for the museum at the Booth Writers Guild. Thanks for coming with us. Okay, so what if you...
Before you go on, Victoria,
Yes.
I just came back from Phoenix, where I attended the board meeting for the Wild West History Association.
Yes.
And we are so excited to have you on our agenda for this coming summer's roundup in Oklahoma City. So it's going to be great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm speaking in Oklahoma City on something completely unrelated to Doc Holliday, another story out of Georgia. The McIntosh family were Indians in Native Americans in Georgia, but they actually began in a castle in Scotland. And so I'm talking about their interesting trail that took them all the way to Oklahoma.
That'll be fun.
I appreciate that. Okay, so what if you have a split personality? For instance, Nora Roberts, okay, we're getting a little out of the Western genre here, but it's a good example. Nora Roberts, for instance, writes romance novels, and this is her website. Doesn't she look soft and feminine and ready for love? Nora Roberts, but she also writes another genre. She writes kind of sci-fi police stories as J.D. Robb. It's the same person. I love that. So as Nora Roberts, she has a soft, gentle look and a one website. As J.D. Robb, she has a completely separate website because she's keeping her personas separate. All right, that makes sense for you? So neither of those may be the real Nora Roberts. She may be just, a mom in a carpool, but she is the romance writer on one website, and then she's tough as J.D. Robb on another website. This is great because if you don't have a social platform to talk about, you can still create a persona that goes along with your writing. Let's see. Here's a little exercise, and I skipped past the last one. I want you to just take a moment for this one. Just take a note on a nickname for your persona. If you could call yourself anything, what would that nickname be? Now, remember, we had Stephen King, the scary book guy, and John Grisham, the legal thriller guy, J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter lady. It might have to do with what you write. For instance, I am the Doc Holliday lady, and I'm always going to be the Doc Holliday lady. Oh, wait, I think I have a question. Let's see. I have lots of questions. Okay, I'm sorry, everybody. What's your question here? How does all this apply to book promotion? I just want people to buy my books. Well, this is the point of book promotion. We have to have something to sell. The truth is, books don't sell themselves, and we don't promote books. We promote authors. J.K. Rowling does TV interviews. John Grisham gets stories in newspapers. The books alone don't do it. You are important to book promotion. This may have been the first time you thought about this. You thought you could write your book and just get your book out there and disassociate yourself from your book, and that's not true. You will find as people start to read your work, they want to know you. Books don't have fans. Authors have fans. Your readers will follow you from one place to another because they like you, the author, and they want to be personal with you. And to me, it was a bit of a uncomfortable thing at first, because your readers will want to know about you, and they'll know things about your family, and they'll know things about where you live, and they'll talk to you about those things when you meet them. And because they've read your work and they've looked into who you are, they'll come to meet you at an appearance and talk to you as if they know you, because they feel like they do. And you don't know them from Adam. But it's important then to have a persona for them. I was at a meeting this past fall, and I had some fans who had followed me across the country to come see me at this meeting. And I felt obligated almost to spend all of my time with them, sit and chat and get real personal with them. My husband reminded me, they want the author you. They want to get close to the author you, but don't wreck the mystique for them, because they think you're this Doc Holliday lady. Don't start chatting with them about all the stuff that's going on at home and how the grandkids are and all of that. Keep the persona. Okay, makes sense to everybody? So again, the truth is we don't promote books, we promote people. You need to find your persona. So think about who you are as a writer, how that relates to what your writing is. And your genre, you've got your little niche, you've got the things that you like to write about. Most writers don't pop back and forth from one type of book to another. We stay in the same vein because we like the same thing. My first series of books were about Doc Holliday. I'm done with Doc. He's dead. He's not coming back unless I did a sci-fi story about Doc in the next world. So those books are done for me. Am I going to stay in the Western vein? Actually, my vein is probably going to continue to be historical fiction about stories of America. So, I'm going off to Native Americans, and currently writing a book about Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's another American story. So my persona has to do with historical fiction and research. All right, so now that you have a start on your author platform, do you have something to say? Or is there a person that you are that writes these books? Now you're ready to start looking at the life cycle of book promotion. What are actually the elements of the book promotion? Okay, there's 3 parts of the life cycle of book promotion: pre-publication, publication, post-publication. 3 parts of the timeline of book promotion, and each of these has tasks that you need to accomplish to have your book sell well. If you graphed the activity of book promotion, it would look something like this, with the breaking news of your upcoming book release over on the bottom left, and then it rises to a peak on release day, and then it falls again as old news, hopefully just in time for your paperback version to come out or your next book to come out. But you'll see this with every book, this rising and falling cycle here. And we'll look at each of these areas and see if we can get you ready to do some of these. Okay. Your book promotion work starts with pre-publication. Either you've signed a contract with the publisher to publish your book. That's the start of pre-publication. The pre-publication starts after you've written it. Your book is done. You wrote it, it's polished, and now you've either signed with a publisher, or you may have decided to go ahead and self-publish that, kind of become your own publisher. That is a nice hand you've got on our screen there, TW.
Technical difficulties.
See, you're adjusting your camera. Okay. So pre-publication for you, if you're independently published, it's you getting ready, deciding who's going to actually print your book, or you may sign with a small publisher or maybe a large publisher. Okay, that's the start of pre-publication. Here's things that happen the minute you've signed that contract. Here's your list of things to do. Make sure you make notes of these pre-publication tasks. Create a website. Oh, what does that relate to? Your platform. Okay. Create a website. Create author pages on social media sites like Facebook, Amazon, Goodreads. These are all free parts of your platform. Remember, your platform is where you're going to stand to let people know that you are there. That's what you've got to do. Creating a website, and I'll come back to all of these again too. We'll go into each one of these in some detail. Create promotional materials, business cards, bookmarks, posters, banners. Create a book trailer, optional. Create a media kit. Blog, optional. And plan your book release and launch party. Okay, I'm going to run through those again really quickly. These are the tasks that you need to do. We will go through each one of these in detail. So create a website, create your author pages, create promotional materials, create a book trailer, maybe, create a media kit, blog, maybe, and plan your book release and launch party. All of these things start happening the minute you sign that document or decide who's going to print your book. You don't have to worry about these things so much while you're writing your book, but as soon as you get that done, here's your pre-publication tasks. All right, let's go through all of these one by one. You need a website. People find you on the web. The web is your website is your office on the internet. And everything you look for now, you look on the internet for it, you look for a website. This is my website. You can do an inexpensive website. Vistaprint can do a website for little to nothing. There are easy to use software programs now. Muse, for instance, is a new web building program if you're handy with using templates. I had mine done professionally. This is just the opening page of my website. It's quite extensive. If you look up at the top, you'll see top left, right, you'll see the buttons: home, about, books, blog, calendar, events, press contact. I knew that I was starting out with a trilogy of books, that each book was going to come out 1 year after another, and that I needed a website that could support 3 books, plus I'm writing other books. So I needed a website that was going to be able to have lots of pages, lots of content, and be able to be flexible enough to keep growing with me. And my website has a theme, and yours should too. My theme is the art of story. The art of story is part of my platform. When I speak at some writers' conferences, my keynote talk is about the art of story. So I tell stories. That's part of my platform. Doc Holliday is a story I have told. Okay, does that make sense? So here's where you might need to come up with a little nickname for yourself. This is maybe where your persona comes into it. My persona really is a storyteller about history. And so my website is the art of story. Below the opening section there, and my website changes with time, by the way, as I get new awards or new things happen, my website is flexible. If you clicked on each of those books, it would take you into more information about the books, pictures of the real people, maps, music that went along with it, more history. So it's really a place where you can explore as a reader. And then you'll see over to the right-hand side, my story. Your readers want to know who you are. As I said before, they want to connect with you. So somewhere on your webpage, you need to have something about you. How did you come to this business? What was your interest in Western writing, for instance? And so give them something about you. Pictures of yourself, obviously, because they want to know you. Down below that, you can't see it here, but there's a button down below that says Doc's story. And that'll take you to the real history of Doc Holliday. Not my books exactly, but Doc's real story. And full of history for history lovers. So my catchphrase again, which begins many of my talks, I'll start my talks by saying, I am not a historian. That keeps me from being too judged by other historians. I am not a historian. I am a storyteller. But history is full of stories, and my stories are full of history. And all that ties back to my persona, which is a storyteller, and my webpage, The Art of Story. So think about for your own website, and I've had, attendees at these classes say, what would my website be? Well, your website is you on the internet, but it's your author self. It's your polished persona self. So think about what that might be and get some pictures up that go with that. All right, your next section on the elements of pre-publication, you need to have your author pages in place. This is great because these are free. Facebook, do not rely on your personal Facebook page. As you become better read and more popular, you're going to want some privacy. A place to put up pictures of your grandkids and your vacation, a place to vent your political opinions. That's your personal Facebook page. That's your own name. You need a book Facebook page. This is for public consumption. I made a mistake once of putting something personal on this page, and one of my readers chastised me about it. She said, this is not the place for that. It was my page. I built it. But she understood what I was still learning at the time. So my Facebook page, and this is great because Facebook's free. Facebook page, you see at the top it says the Tombstone Epitaph. It's got from the window of the Epitaph office in Tombstone. Now my new version of this has all 3 of my books showing. This says 6,427 likes. Now we're almost to 10,000 likes. Not all of those likes are readers. They're all Doc Holliday fans, though. And they'll find me all over the internet because I connect to everything on the internet that I can. My Facebook page is not an advertisement. It does not say, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. If you have a Facebook page like that, people are going to stop liking it, unlike it, and not want to talk to you anymore. Nobody wants to be hard sold. My book Facebook page, my Southern Sun Facebook page, is all filled with information about Doc Holliday. When there's something in his life that happened on a particular date, I put that on that particular date. For instance, obviously the OK Corral, on the actual date of the OK Corral, I talked about it. But as we go through the year, everything legal that went on with that entire event, that shows up on that particular date. Coming up in March, we're going to have the anniversary of the date of Morgan Earp shooting. And that tremendously draws people to my site. It's free information. I'm not selling them anything. However, at the bottom of every one of those posts, I say, order the Southern Sun books at, and I give them a link to Amazon, or I say, order from your favorite bookseller. But they've already gotten all this free information first. So your post should be something newsy and intriguing. See what you can find that goes along with your book, with your persona, that you can give away for free. And if you feel like, well, I just write, generic Western stories, well, give us information about the West. See if you can find links out there that you can share on this Facebook page to interesting stories about the West. How were the cattle handled? What about the railroads? It's going to be a place where people can come and get free information. And then at the end of it, you can say, thanks for being here. If you're interested in my book, here it is. You will build tremendously your readership and your following. Now, you may have people who follow you who aren't necessarily readers, but guess what? Everybody knows a reader. And from time to time, you can say, please share. I do contests from time to time. My contest is so easy. I just give away a book. And I'll do a contest, for instance, what did you hate about Johnny Ringo? Throw a question out there, and they have to answer the question. And I tell them, to be in the contest, answer the question here and share this post. So that post, what do you hate about Johnny Ringo? And their post then goes out to all of their friends. And their friends say, oh, what was this? Where did this come from? And they come back and like the page too. Free way to build your presence, but don't use Facebook as an advertising technique. I hope that makes sense to you. Use it as a way to disseminate information, to share, to build readers, to build a community, and your community will then buy your books. And you will start to see them sharing these posts. I see often somebody will share it and they'll just put somebody else's name on it. They've come across it and they've thought, oh, this is great for my friend Bob, so they send it to Bob. Okay. And I'm hoping that at the end of this, we can come back to questions. So if people have questions, note them, and I'd be happy to answer those personally for you. Okay. Another freebie part of your platform, a place you need to be, is your Amazon page. Everybody should be on Amazon. It is not the only book selling area in the world, but it's the biggest book selling area in the world. So you need to be on Amazon. I mentioned, though, about Amazon. I had a friend who recently had a new book come out, and I asked her, where are you selling the book? I didn't know if she was self-published or with a publisher. Where are you selling the book? She said, on Amazon. I said, and where else? On Amazon. It's the biggest, but it's not the only one. But Amazon gives you Author Central. Fill up your Author Central page because your readers will click on that to find out more about you. So you need a biography, put some nice pictures of yourself up there, add some videos if you've got them, and for sure put your calendar there. I'm always surprised at the people who follow my calendar. I don't look at my calendar once I put it up. I have it somewhere else. And I'm always surprised that people will follow your calendar. Again, free. Use this. Also, Goodreads. Goodreads was actually bought by Amazon, so now the two things are linked. What you put on Goodreads will eventually find its way to Amazon, but make sure you like what you've got on Goodreads. Another free device. Goodreads, for those of you who don't know, Goodreads is an online book club, basically. Breaks down books by genres and allows people to read books together. Goodreads will have a, what are we going to read this month? And people get to vote on it in their particular genres. So go through Goodreads, explore it, have fun with it. You can see this one. It's got, and I'm not sure who put these things up. Actually, it's got the film Wyatt Earp. It's got a picture of the movie Tombstone. It's got my book trailer. As I said, they are linked to Amazon now, so sometimes Amazon will throw up things from your Amazon page onto Goodreads. So manage these. Again, free book promotion. This is the platform. This is where you need to be. If you're not here, people will not find you. They won't buy your books. Okay, and then also I said print media. Here's the type of print media we're talking about. I don't know who this person is, but I like this visual that showed everything all at once. Don't know anything about the book, so I can't give you any comment on it. But this is the type of thing we're talking about. Looks like he's got a couple of different posters there. He's got a print copy of his book. He's got bookmarks over off to the right, this little 5x7 printed bookmarks, and then he's got some business cards up at the top. These were done by a company called Lulu.com. And just a good, inexpensive place to print these. I print most everything I do on Vistaprint. Vistaprint has the great prices, sales all the time. My business cards come from Vistaprint, my posters. I do huge banners when I speak at a festival or do something like that. All of it comes from Vistaprint. So have fun with those. Yes, you do have to spend a little money. You may make thousands of dollars selling your books. How much you spend promoting is up to you. These are the basics. You can do this part, though, the business cards, the bookmarks, the posters. You can do this whole thing for under $100. So get going on that. And book trailers. I'm going to give you a minute to talk about book trailers. We're not going to watch mine. This is just the opening page of the book trailer, which my publisher did. I wrote the script, and then they provided the book trailer. There is no data that says that book trailers sell books. In fact, I think they don't sell books, to tell you the truth, unless you are a huge published author. If your book trailer runs after American Idol and millions of people see your book trailer, you know, if you're Stephen King and your new book is coming out and they've got a short trailer for it, that will sell books. For most of us, your book trailer is not going to sell books, but it is interesting for your readers. It adds to your authenticity, and it's intriguing. I have thousands and thousands and thousands of people who've looked at my book trailer, tens of thousands of people, lots and lots of book trailer viewers who I don't think are also readers. But they're fun. And it gives you a visual way to tell your story. And if you think you ever want to perhaps write a screenplay of your book, yeah, it's a good start at doing that. Okay, we good still, TW?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
going to, oh, we don't have enough. All right, don't pay attention to me. It's using up my battery more quickly than I thought, and I've got about 6% left. The only charger I have only works in the cigarette lighter of my truck, so I'm moving our venue to my truck.
We're so Western, aren't we? We're going to go do this from a truck. I love it. Okay, so shall I just keep talking and we hope we'll continue here? Okay.
Yes. What I don't know is if I were to drop off, if it kills the webinar or if it just loses me as a participant.
Okay, so how will we know that?
If everything goes away.
Okay, folks, if everything goes away, stick with us. We're going out to TW's truck. I love it. And we'll be back with you. So let me go on. Well, how long is that going to take you to do here, TW?
About 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I kind of want to pause at this moment then, because we're about to get into your media kit, and that's really important. I don't want to lose any media kit. So let's see. I'll just share some personal experiences if I can do that. For me personally, this was a really sharp learning curve, learning about all of this stuff. I signed with a small publisher who specialized in historical fiction and loved my story. And I had to start doing a lot of these things on my own. And I didn't even know what they were talking about when they told me these bits and pieces of information. So I started reading everything I could get my hands on. I was all over the internet reading about book promotion, and I bought lots of books on book promotion. Being an author is a job, and it's a job separate from writing your story. Being an author is a business, and it's how you sell your story. And you cannot, in this world, rely on other people to do that for you. Even if you've signed with a big publisher, there's a lot you still have to do on your own. So these elements are all very important. And you want to have, even if you do sign with a big publisher and you've got a whole promotional department behind you, you still want to have some control of how you are perceived as an author. That's you, and a publishing company will not come along and groom you as an author. That's for you to do. So again, going back to your persona, who are you? What is it you have to say to the world? Okay, well, we look like we're wandering through the lobby of the booth at this time. I really don't want to move on to our next section. I don't want to lose everybody. I would rather wait a moment, but I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments here. So this might be a good time for y'all to go run and get a drink of water. And we see a frozen picture from TW, but we don't know if he's still live with us. If you all can see this, now we're walking outside the booth. It's a beautiful blue sky day here in Georgia. It's chilly and lovely. We're moving our webinar out to TW's truck because he's losing his battery. For those who have not yet been to the Booth Museum, if you're just joining us only on the internet, you've got to visit this place, a world-class museum of art dedicated to Western art. It's fantastic. And I love, twice a year, we have gatherings that are Western themed. There's the, I think it's the Cowboy Symposium in the spring with a great barbecue cookout and vendors coming in and artists and speakers and music. Authors, it's fantastic. And then in the fall, we've got the Cowboy Gathering. Anyway, come and join us for those things. They are wonderful. How did I get into Western writing? I'll give you another little personal thing. I got into Western writing strictly because of this book, because of the Doc Holliday books. I grew up in the West. I have definitely a Western background behind me. I had a grandfather who was a president of a cattlemen's association. I had a Western movie background as well. So I was always interested in the West and loved Westerns. Knew I wanted to write. Didn't know that I'd write about Doc Holliday until I discovered his story. So I'm honored to be part of the Western genre. And I have sitting behind me there is my award that I received this year from True West Magazine as Best Historical Western Novelist. And I'm very happy to, I'm honored that that award has also been given to Mary Doria Russell, who wrote the book Doc and Epitaph. So, hey, TW, you're in your truck.
I am.
Okay, and we never went dead, so I guess we're okay. All right, shall I continue?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Okay, folks, we are going to move on from here. Get your pencils ready again to the media kit. This is one of those points of book promotion, of pre-publication that we talked about. These are things that have to be ready. You start working on these as soon as you sign the contract. I'm sorry, let me give you a moment. You sign your contract, go out to dinner, have a party, and then the next day you start on all these things. Okay, here's what goes in your media kit. If you have a huge publisher, they're going to do some of this for you. Most of us don't. So these things you need to do for yourself. In your media kit needs to be a book synopsis. I am not going to go into detail about this later. Your book synopsis, I hope that you understand what that is. That is the short telling of what your book is about. Maybe a page or less long, just the high points of your plot. Book synopsis. And your book synopsis, by the way, will be used in a lot of promotion, so you need to have that thing written. But writing the book synopsis was the hardest thing I ever had to write because I spent 18 years writing this huge, complicated story, and then I had to back up and take it back down to less than a page. And that was just impossible, kind of take it all apart and find just the basic bones of what the story was. For a clue, if you haven't written one, look on the backs of DVDs, movies, those little movie blurbs. That's basically a synopsis. They don't tell you the whole 3-hour movie. They just give you a little 1-paragraph version of what this movie's about. So get your book synopsis ready. You're going to need that. A book cover image. Get a really good, high-quality JPEG image of your, and JPEG.jpeg. It's a digital version of your book. You're going to need that in your print. Make sure it's a good quality one, high resolution. An author bio, short, maybe a page long, about yourself. Remember that book promotion sells you, not your books. My books did not go sit on TV and talk. I talked on TV. So an author bio, your history. How did you come to this story? What's interesting about you as a writer, as an author? It might not say everything about you. For instance, my bio does not say that I'm a cupcake-addicted grandmother who teaches children's music at church. That's my personal life. It doesn't go there. But your author self goes in the author bio. An author photo. Go out and get a nice photograph of yourself done. Unless you've got a friend who can take a good picture of you, it needs to be, again, really high resolution because it's going to be used in a lot of print media. Make sure you look good in your author photo. A news release. This is a press release. You can write press releases.
Thanks for your help.
Read your local paper and see what a press release looks like. Your press release should start off with the location and talk about what's going on in this story you're telling. The press release is about your book coming out or events that have to do with it, something interesting about yourself, something you're hoping the newspaper will get going. All of this is going in your media kit. Testimonials, blurbs about your book. See if you can get other authors to say how great your story is. An author Q&A. I find this really interesting because I've actually had newspapers didn't want to do a story, but they thought a little Q&A would be interesting, and they asked me to supply it to them. So when it's printed, it looks like the newspaper was asking me questions and I was answering. It was me. asking my own questions and answering my own questions. The nice thing about that is you totally control it. So just have a little Q&A session with yourself. Ask yourself questions that you might like people to ask about your book, and then answer them and type that all up. A sell sheet. A sell sheet is a one-page document that is sent to bookstores to tell them how to get a hold of your book. And it will have a little bit of your synopsis, might have your author photo, for sure will have your book cover image, and then information about how to find that book, who the publisher is, how many pages long, what format does the book come in, and also what your marketing campaign is going to be, where you'll be appearing, what your calendar might be, what you're going to do to promote the book. That's a quick version of a sell sheet. Your media kit will have any media coverage you've had, and your calendar, your list of events. So get all these written down. We are going to talk about these again in some detail, and start to put together a packet of this. You might want to keep this all in a notebook, in a file on your computer, copies of this. Have it ready. Whenever I am asked to speak somewhere, I send that information to my publicist, and my publicist always writes to those folks and says, would you like a media kit? They know what it is, and they say, yes, please send us the kit. So you're going to want to have this in place. Okay, now we have all that ready. Now comes publication.
Victoria,
Yes.
we have a question.
Oh, terrific.
Denise wants to know if there are going to be any notes that can be emailed to us from this presentation that you're doing.
I could do notes, and yes, we could get those sent out. I know this is a pile of information. Yeah, we could do notes for you, Denise, not a problem. Thank you for the question. Okay, so yeah, I know this is a lot. Okay, so you've got this thing put together. You haven't even gotten published yet. Now comes publication or book release. I love this visual, this image, because it's a book being released and flying out into the world. Congratulations, book publication day. There are tasks that go along with book publication. Here's your tasks. Now that your book is published, update your website. Have a banner. It's out. The book is available. If you've already started to get some reviews, put those reviews there. Take pictures, update your website. Announce it on social media. Remember, you've already compiled all those social media sites. From the start of pre-publication, you started creating your social media places. Now is the time. The book is released. And for a little while, you can talk about it every day on social media. But don't say, buy my book, buy my book. Really fast, people will stop looking at your announcements. Just remind them gently, it's released and here's where it's available. And you might be able to announce on social media, and so just said this nice thing about the book, okay? Soft sell always. Send an email to your family and friends. Let them know the book is out. They will be encouraging. They'll be your first flurry of buyers. Hopefully they'll like your book and tell their friends about it too. You've got to have a base where you are. This is very important. Your family and friends need to know, they need to be in support, and then your local community. So, start there and then build out. Hold a book release or launch party, and we're going to talk about why that's important. And send a press release. Those press releases that you have already written that are in your media kit, now it's time to send it. And the press release will say, so-and-so's new book just released to great rave reviews, and it's available at, depending on where are you going to send those? To your local paper. The New York Times isn't interested. No newspaper out of your local area will print a press release about this unless you're already a best-selling author. When I first started, I thought, oh, I wonder what it would cost to do like an ad, like in People magazine. Let's just check. $250,000. So if you have $250,000 laying around and you want to do an ad, you can. Press releases are free, but the only people who will print them will be your local papers. And if you're in this area, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution will not do a press release for your book. They don't care. Unless you are a best-selling author, a first-run author, it's not going to happen. Unless you've written a new book about something just so shocking that it's going to make the national news. Even me, having been the Holiday House lady, and having been a community servant in this area for years, knowing a lot of people here, Even me, it took a year to get the local newspaper to start printing my press releases. And I had to actually call my local paper and say, what's the deal? You know, I'm a local person and I have this book coming out. Why are you not printing any press releases from me? And they said, well, actually, we are so short on money and space now because newspapers generally have gotten smaller than they used to be. They said, we don't print press releases for anybody who doesn't buy an ad in the paper. I said, oh, okay, well, I can do that. Tell me what an ad in my local paper would cost me. And just to do a teeny little, like an eighth of a page size ad, I think was like $175. And as soon as I bought that, from then on, they started printing all my press releases. As soon as I showed I was a supporter of the newspaper. So call your local paper and find out, what do I need to do to have a press release printed? You may have a very amenable paper that'll print lots of press releases, but there's a little secret for you. It's all about making friends with that local press. And now, and as I said, now they'll print anything I send them, which is great. But I had to become a supporting friend of that newspaper. Okay, let's talk about these different things. Updating your website, that's easy. You've got your website built. Whether you have a professional website developer, as I did, and I send her information and she updates the site, or whether you go in and update it yourself. You can do all your announcements on social media, very easy. Facebook, Goodreads, Twitter. Twitter. I have a Twitter account, and Victoria Wilcox, author, has tweeted, but it wasn't me, it was my daughter, because I don't know anything about Twitter. I don't think a lot of people follow me on Twitter, but again, it's a free, easy way to do something. But Goodreads and Facebook are really important to you. Okay, we are going to talk about that launch party now. Your book release party. This is super important. You want to celebrate your book publication. You want to make it an event, something people want to pay attention to. If you can, use a special venue. Invite dignitaries. You can invite the mayor and the head of your local school board, certainly the librarians and all of their staff, all of your favorite business people, your dentist, your doctor, anybody who has a position in your community. Invite those dignitaries. They may not come, but you want to invite them. Do it to benefit a local cause. That draws attention. Give a part of proceeds of book sales to something or other. You can do it even for literacy in the community. You know, be a supporter of the library. Do it to benefit a cause, and you're more likely to get some attention. And all of that makes news for future press releases. Okay, so your first press release was about your book coming out. Now your next press releases are going to be about this great event that happened with the release of your book. It all is going to create buzz about your book. People are going to talk about it. And it's going to create goodwill in your community because you invited all these community people to your book release party. I'm not talking about having a book release at a local bookstore. Everybody does that. Nobody's going to pay attention to it except your friends and people who've maybe already read a book that you had. I would never have a book release party at a bookstore. I would always make it an event, something worth writing a press release and a story about, something people want to come to, something that's going to create buzz. In your area, you know, maybe you'll do something in a barn, maybe you'll do it, you know, I don't know, it's up to you, but let me show you some ideas that happened for me. Now, I had a local and easy venue for my first book release party for Inheritance, the first book in the Southern Sun series. I had that book release party at, of course, the Holiday Dorsey Fife House, where the story began. I contacted them. I'm no longer the director. It's gone through 2 more directors since that time. But I contacted them and asked if I could celebrate the book release there because the book, you know, it got its genesis there. And they said, oh, we'd love that because it brings notice to them as well. And so we had this event out behind the museum. It's a museum filled with artifacts, so I'm not going to have a party inside the museum. But it was a wonderful thematic place to have this book about an Old South man in the West. We put a giant party tent up outside. I had lovely tables. I paid for all this. Lovely tables set up outside. We did a Southern dinner. I had a local caterer do the food. They got some promotion from that. And of course, our centerpieces, look what they were, the books. It was all about the books. I gave a talk at this party thanking the museum, thanking all, and we had local dignitaries come. People from the county commissioner and the people from City Hall came, all the librarians came, which made them aware that my book was coming out. The library said, oh, we've got to get this book ordered. We want you to come speak. And I thanked everybody there. It was kind of a big thank you party to everybody, but it was an event that drew information, it drew attention. We had antique dancing there, and that beautiful girl down on the bottom singing, that's my daughter, my oldest daughter, and she sang the song, The Water is Wide, which is the theme song for those books, and is actually a poem that's used in the beginning of the book. So it was this fabulous, wonderful May evening to celebrate the book, and then guess what I got to do? I got to sign lots of books. This was great. Gone West, the second book, and then we did press releases after, and the pictures from the party were published in the local paper. So then again, more people found out about it. This is promotion. The second book, Gone West, we had the opportunity to launch Gone West at the Margaret Mitchell House Museum in Atlanta, because Doc Holliday was related to Margaret Mitchell through marriage, related to Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind. So what was great about this is that they have an author series, and I proposed doing my book release party there. They accepted it, and it became part of their literary series. So they promoted it through their own mailings and through their own website and through their own media. So now I'm being promoted by the Margaret Mitchell House Museum in Atlanta, only because I was doing a party there. And so we turned the Margaret Mitchell House Museum into an Old West town. We had guest of honor. Doc Holliday there was keeping tabs on things at the saloon. The invitations that went out were these printed invitations, wanted for a celebration, book launch party. Of course, we sent a news release, a press release about this, inviting everybody to come and giving them contact information. We had Wild West themed food there. We had a Texas barbecue. We had specially custom labeled bottles of root beer, Texas chocolate cupcakes. So we went along with this whole theme and made it really fun. I never just sign books at a book launch. I always give a talk. I tell my story because I want people to know me. I want them to feel connected to me and to my story. I want them to feel personal about it. And my talk, by the way, was way back there at the back of the room on that laptop. There was no place to have it up by me. And so you got to know your stuff if you're going to do this talk. And of course, again, I signed lots of books at the book launch party. And look, our table even had playing cards on it. So play on the theme. But do you see how making your book launch an event makes it something that is newsworthy, creates buzz and goodwill, and people are excited to be there? And of course, everybody will want to take pictures with you because they're at this cool party. And this is me with Dr. David O'Connell, who is a noted Atlanta author, and he came and supported my party and my book launch, and it was lots of fun. The last decision book launch party, which we just had last May, I did right here locally in Fayette County. We have a Twisted Taco restaurant that's their inside theme is Tombstone. It was perfect, and it backs up to the Holiday Dorsey Fife House, has a view of where the book started, and so we had the party there and invited, again, all the local folks and all of my friends, and, you know, made the newspaper with press releases about this upcoming event. My point, again, is anybody can go launch a book at a bookstore, and you will have a tiny turnout, unless you're a big-name author. You want to make your book launch an event that nobody can miss, and then they've got to buy your books because it's just the coolest thing happening. So when you think of your book launch, think of launching your book like you'd launch a ship, with a party, with champagne, with a celebration. Make it an event. And then when you're done with it, write a press release, send it to the paper with pictures of your book launch, thanking all those dignitaries for coming and letting people know what a great success it was. And people will read about it in paper and say, oh, I need to go do this thing. Okay, you're creating buzz. All right, now you're published. Now you go into post-publication. Your book hopefully is selling like hotcakes, or at least a little bit. Now you're in the post-publication phase. Your book is in print. It's available for sale, and you guessed it, you're going to have more tasks to complete in this section of book promotion. Here's your tasks, another list. And again, as we were requested, we'll put together some handouts that we can email to everybody if you're interested. Go ahead and take notes on what the tasks are. To solicit Amazon reviews. Now, by soliciting reviews, that means you have to ask real people to write Amazon reviews. I speak to a lot of book clubs, and every time I speak to a book club, I ask the members of the book club when I'm done, thank you so much for having me. I hope you will all consider writing a review on Amazon and telling them how much you've loved this book. A book club, they've already read your book. And so they've got some opinions. So solicit those Amazon reviews. The more reviews you get, the more stars you get that say this was a great book, the more likely other people are to buy the book. And so again, when I say solicit, you can't buy these reviews. This is real people reviews who are going to go to Amazon and tell people how much they like your book. Ask people for their reviews. Contact bookstores for signings. You might think this is rather late into the game. A lot of you may have thought that having bookstore signings is the center point of book promotion, and I will tell you, it's not. Bookstore signings do not sell books unless you are J.K. Rowling or John Grisham or Stephen King and you're already a best-selling author and people find out you're going to be there and they come because they want your signature in their book. If you are a beginning author, you might be able to wrangle a bookstore signing, and I'll tell you how, but wrangle a bookstore signing and you're going to sit there at a table and you may sit there for hours and nobody stops at your table. Bookstore signings are a good way to connect with people, but they don't sell books in particular. So this is a post-publication bit of promotion that's going to help to continue to get people to know you. You might sell a few books. How to contact bookstores for signings. If you have a local bookstore, an independent, that's your best bet for getting a signing because they want to support the local community. Make sure that you support that bookstore by buying their books. If you are self-published, and I think probably lots of people nowadays are, harder to do a bookstore signing if you're self-published. Why? Because the bookstore is not going to make any money. If you're self-published, you're going to have to make a deal with the bookstore that they get a certain percentage of the book sales. There are so many self-published authors that bookstores generally don't like to carry them because it takes up space for other better promoted books, which they are going to make money selling. So make sure you have a personal relationship with that local bookstore. They know who you are. They think your book is good. You've given them a copy. You shop there, and they're more likely to do that. If you have published with a small press, you've got a much better shot at getting a book promotion or a book signing in a store. Even without a big publisher, even a small independent press, you can get a signing at, for instance, Barnes & Noble. I've done signings all across the country, though, at Barnes & Noble's. And again, you will sit there a lot and just see people walking through and you get to maybe chat with people. You might sell a few books. So don't consider it as the basis of your book promotion. It's one of the tasks that you're going to do. It's a way to connect with people, but not necessarily a way to sell a lot of books. Okay. 3, pitch non-bookstores. This one, I think it says optional, but to me, it's really important. Pitch non-bookstores for events and speaking engagements. Remember that you are building your presence as an author. It's you we're promoting, and then your books. Your books cannot go into an environment and just be sold. You can go into an environment and give a talk and take your books with you to sell, and you'll make a lot of friends that way. What kind of events? It depends on what kind of book you've written. But locally, lots of organizations look for speakers. The Rotary, the Kiwanis, ladies clubs, Daughters of the American Revolution, high school literacy nights. I'm just throwing out things that happen around my local area all the time and that I've been asked to speak at. Speakers are always wanted. So find something to say to the public about your book. Going back to that first talk we had about platform, if you have a social agenda, if you have a thing to say that's a little beyond your books, good, you've got a topic. There was a local here where I am in Fayette County, there was a locally self-published author who wanted to build his presence, and I did some consulting with him, and he was writing kind of spy novels and that dealt with forensics. And he said, oh, I don't have anything to say to anybody anyplace. I said, well, did you have to study up on forensics to write these? Well, yeah, I had to learn something about forensics. I said, great, there's your platform. You can use that. You know, even a ladies club luncheon, they're always looking for speakers. They might very well be looking for somebody to come and talk about, you know, how are forensics done? How do we learn about murders in the local area? So try to expand your thinking and think, what is it that I can share with people? And start to find some places to speak. And ask them, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'd love to speak. You will speak for free at first. This is not money-making at first. You're going to speak for free until you get established as a speaker. And slowly, your base will expand. People will hear that you spoke someplace, like they've heard from somebody else that you were good. And then you can start commanding a speaker's fee. And then I'm now to the point where I generally am paid to speak. I'm paid for my transportation. My hotels are paid for. I'm flown places to speak. But it started out very small. You can do that same thing if you have something to talk about. Make sure you do. Okay, you're going to pitch the local media. Again, this is, you're not probably going to get on the CBS Evening News, but local media, let local media know that you are available to speak. The way I got that local Atlanta and Company TV show, my publicist had contacted them and let them know I had such and such to talk about. They had an opening. They needed somebody for an interview, and so they called. Can you be here? Absolutely, I can be there. Let people know you're available, and then remind them that you're available. They're not going to come to you at first. Also, talk to your college in your hometown. For the media, does your college, the college you went to, do they have a paper? Can you let them know that this alumnus is doing something wonderful, has won an award or published a book? Publicize your public events. That seems obvious, doesn't it? If you're having an event, make sure it's in all the local media and you've got posters and things. Let people know that you're going to be available. I have spoken a couple of times when I've been on vacation in Florida. I've spoken a couple of times at a library there. They've invited me, and they do a lot of publicity in their local area. They send it out in the local newsletter that goes to all the vacationers. So work with the local media in whatever place you're being to get some publicity. Update your social media. Keep working with that Facebook. Put photos up of the things you do. People look at photos, by the way, much faster than they look at something written. So try to find a photograph with everything that you put on your Facebook page. And you can scour the internet, look for images. It doesn't even have to be you. It doesn't have to be authentic. Again, if you're writing a Western, put up a picture of a horse to go with something you're going to say, because people will see the picture and it'll draw their attention. Update your media kit. Remember that media kit that we put together? You're going to want to make sure that everything in it is up to date, because now your book is out. Now you've got some reviews. Now you might be getting some awards. Make sure that those things go in your media kit. Keep it ready to go. Create a speaker one sheet. Boy, we are going to have to send out notes on this. A speaker one sheet, if you make a proposal, say, to your local high school to speak at a literacy night, a lot of them have those, you're going to want a speaker one sheet. The one sheet just says who you are. It's got a picture of your face, what you wrote. It's a one-page little publicity ad for you. And what you wrote, where the books are available, what you're going to talk about, a little bit about your background. Often people will use that as your introduction. So just have it ready to go. Blog, optional. I say optional on this. A lot of people think blogging is the way to a big career because some people have used blogging to a big career. For me, blogging takes away from my writing. My web designer insists that I blog occasionally because it's new content for the website. When I post a new blog on the website, I then post on Facebook that there's a new blog post over on the website. People can go there. It does draw attention in. Unless you like to blog, you're already doing it, I wouldn't put a lot of effort into becoming a blogger, because that's writing time that's going into something else. So if you're already blogging and you like it, keep it going. If you wanted to start, what would you blog about? The topic of your book, or maybe the process of writing. However, most of the people who read blogs about writing are writers. What you're wanting to reach is readers. Writers may read what you have to say in your blog, but they won't necessarily buy your books. So, if you're blogging already and you like to blog, that's great. I wouldn't worry about it being something that's necessary. A blog tour. This is kind of fun, and this is optional. You will have to pay to do a blog tour, but it's not much money, a couple $100 maybe. I had never heard of such a thing as this. There are blog tour bookers. There are people in every genre. There are people who write blogs, and they love to have guest bloggers come in, and there are agents who will book you to visit people's blogs. It took me a while to figure this one out. So for instance, when my first book came out, this agent booked me to go visit blogs for a week. And so that blogger would send me questions, I'd answer them, and she'd post them on her blog that particular day. And she'd say, oh, we have such and such author with us, can answer questions about this and that. I don't know that for me, it sold a lot of books to do a blog tour, and that's why I call it optional. But it was much lower cost than going on an actual book tour, of course. You're just on the internet. And Google blog tours and Google genre for blog tours. If you know of people who write blogs already about your topic, contact them and see if they would like you to do a guest post. And that's free, and it's good content for them. So visit different blogs that you might read and ask them if they'd like a guest post about anything. Again, it's just a way to connect with the world. And then an email newsletter. I have one. It goes out only very occasionally. It's sent out by my web designer. And when I say very occasionally, it's only when something is happening. We've got some new information. And I was surprised, though, to find out that I actually have followers of my email newsletter. That's an element of my website that allows people to sign up to receive a newsletter. If you're doing your own website, that might be a bit complicated. I don't know. I don't do my own. It is something that my professional web designer offered. You might just want to generate a regular email list and just send an email list to all of your readers just to let them know something's happening. Maybe they didn't go to your Facebook page this week, but you have something going on and you want them to know. So collect email addresses every place you go and build an email list. And it doesn't have to be a beautiful newsletter. It could just be an email that you send out occasionally just to keep people updated. And sorry, those pretty chimes were ringing. We'll get that out of the way. Okay, and submit for awards. This one's optional, but so good for publicity. There are awards that cost you nothing to submit to, local contests. There are awards that are very inexpensive to submit to. And again, because I don't know particularly exactly what your book is, I would suggest that you Google that. Also, I highly recommend joining the Georgia Writers Association. GWA.com, I think. They are based out of Kennesaw and meet at Kennesaw University, or Kennesaw State University, State College, and they are the ones who host the Georgia Author of the Year. Georgia Author of the Year started 50 plus years ago, but now is hosted by the Georgia Writers Association. So you can submit your book for awards there, and boy, does that look good if you want to be on TV to have won a nice award. Okay, I hope that there's lots of questions we can answer for you as we go through some of those things. I want to go through quickly now which of these is most successful, and I want to start at the bottom. Top book promotion tactics. Let's start at the bottom. Video promotions, like for instance, your book trailer. Yes. Hey, TW, do you have a question?
No, I was looking to see if there were questions.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
good.
Okay, we'll go. Do you have any questions for me at this point?
Me? No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go on then. Look at the bottom of the book promotion tactics. I want you to see these bars. Okay. Video promotions like a book trailer. Look, it's the bottom. Don't worry about one unless you just want to make one. Article marketing. Article marketing. You writing articles about things. It's good, but it's not the top. Freemiums, giving away information. For me, that's on Facebook. That's a very good way to get people in. But notice they're not really buying books from it, but I'm building an audience. Speaking live, this is really, it's good, it's important, it's going to help to build your base. If you just hate, if you cringe at the thought of being a public speaker, you don't have to do that. But I guarantee you that if you continue to write and people read, you will be invited to speak. Loretta Hannon, a best-selling author who wrote The Cracker Queen about growing up poor in Georgia, gave a wonderful webinar or seminar about book promotion. And at this point, she said, if you hate public speaking and people lean forward in their seats with their pencil ready to get this, this great wisdom she was going to give, if you hate public speaking, get over it. Because if you're a writer and people like reading what you write, they're going to want to hear you talk. So, but it's kind of down the list, so don't get too scared about it. But I guarantee that if you write and people read, they're going to ask you, please come speak to us. And you can start with something as small as a book club. And actually, I will warn you, book clubs to me are the most exhausting form of public speaking because it's so personal, it's so intimate. You're there for a couple of hours. They want to hear you talk and talk and talk, and then they want to ask you lots of questions, and you're just drained by the end of a book club. So if you want to get used to public speaking, start by doing local book clubs. You can let your local library know that you're available for book clubs. The library probably has a book club affiliated with it, or they know who the book clubs are. And do a little speaker one sheet and give to the library saying, Here's who I am. Here's the book that I wrote. Here's where it's available. And I'm available to speak to book clubs. Book clubs love to have authors come speak. That's a good way to get your feet wet, and also know that it's the most stressful part of public speaking. So if you can manage that, everything else is easier. Okay, radio and television talk shows. Boy, wouldn't you think that would be at the top of the list here for the most productive kind of book promotion? The problem is it's brief. It's on the air once, and you might have a flurry of sales, and then it dies away. It's not consistent. It's not ongoing. Last spring, I had the opportunity to be the Doc Holliday expert on the Fox series, Legends and Lies, The Real West, the Bill O'Reilly introduced series. And I was the big author, or big expert on Holliday, and so I had a quick, big upsurge in book sales across the country. But after the series stopped airing and then repeating the number of times it repeated, those fall off. So that's why this falls midway down, because it's not going to be consistent. It won't keep coming. You'll have an upsurge. Book signings. Remember I told you book signings in a bookstore, not the best way to promote books? Because people are going to come into the bookstore. They're not, unless you are hugely famous and they saw in the paper that you're going to be there, they're just going in to buy a book for their kids, to attend a birthday party. They're not there to buy a Western book. They're going to see you and maybe they'll buy your book, maybe not. Okay. Above that, email marketing, that's going to reach a bigger audience. And if you can collect email names for people who are interested in your genre, it's a little more targeted. Seeking book reviews and endorsements. Yes, if you can have a big author endorse you, that will help. It's been very helpful to me that Dr. Gary Roberts, who is Doc Holliday's most prominent biographer, that Gary Roberts is a huge fan and friend of mine and has promoted me to many places. He puts in a good word for me. He writes blurbs for the back of my book. So yeah, that's a really good thing if you can get some endorsements. Wow, look at blogging, because blogging is out there in the blogosphere. As I said, if you don't blog and you don't want to have to start blogging, contact some blogs and let them know you're an author and you'd be happy to write a guest post. It's not going to cost you anything except time to write one blog. You don't have to blog all the time. You don't have to have your own blog. It gives you an opportunity to be seen. It gives them some free content. So that's a win-win on both sides, and it's free. And I love this. Look at the top. The number one book promotion tactic is all of that social network. Your Facebook page, your Goodreads, your Amazon Facebook page, or your Amazon author page. Why is it the top? Because it's the most cost effective. It costs you nothing. There's no print media involved. There's nothing, just you putting something out there. And that's why it's so important that you be in those places, that you make that the platform that you stand on. But again, make sure you have something to say when you're there, not just buy my book. Nobody wants to see your ad again and again. They want to see you speaking, talking, giving them some information. Okay, moving on. I love this picture. This is me with the famous Pat Conroy in New Orleans at a book event, and he has a copy of my book. Pat Conroy, when he heard about my book while I was writing it, he said he loves Southern stories, and he said, I wished I'd thought of it. And that was great. That kept me writing, knowing that Pat Conroy wished he'd thought of this story. But Pat Conroy has been a best-selling author for 40 years. And Pat Conroy still attends events, talks to bookstores, has social media presence, because he knows that you've got to work to sell your book, and that a book that nobody knows about, nobody will buy. Another author that was at this particular event was Richard Paul Evans, who wrote The Christmas Box. And he's known as, his persona, he's the Christmas story guy. Well, he also has another genre of books about a young teenage boy who has some disabilities, but some superpowers. And he wrote this to help young kids with disabilities feel, that they still have some power in the world. Wonderfully written stuff. And he spoke up to a large group there of booksellers, bookstore owners, and he said, how are the Michael Vey books doing in your store? How many of you are carrying these books? And only a few hands went up from bookstore owners. And Richard Paul Evans said, okay, I've got some work to do. He knew that book promotion goes on even if you're a best-selling author, even if you're published by a huge house with a book campaign. He's out there on the ground trying to contact people and let people know about his book. He maybe can do it at a higher level than we can as independent or self-published authors, but it's the very same techniques. So here's my favorite last technique I'd like to share with you. And this one I think is important to us as people, writers and people. Selfless self-promotion. Visits to libraries. They're not going to pay you anything. but you can go visit with their readers, maybe give a talk in a library. School visits, schools are not going to pay you anything. You're probably not going to sell any books at a school, but you can go talk to students about writing and about the arts, about your topic. Hospital visits. See if you can arrange for a senior citizen center to be able to go in and speak about the craft of writing. Writers' workshops. You may get paid to do writer workshops, but you'll probably start out doing them for free. It helps to promote you as an author. It also helps to teach in your community. Senior living centers. My first I've done several of these, lots of these around the country. And I do sell books at senior living centers, but my very first one was local, and it made me want to give up senior living centers because there was one woman in there, I think, who was way into her 90s, and I had never before read anything from one of my books. I'd always just told my story and hoped people would want to buy the books, but I thought, oh, they're seniors. They probably would like me to read to them a little bit. So I started reading a little bit from the beginning of Inheritance, and she fell dead asleep, noisily snoring in the middle of my talk. So that's something to watch out for senior citizen centers, senior living centers. Don't take it personally. They're just old. Service organizations, the Rotary and the Kiwanis. Get on the phone with your local Rotary and Kiwanis this week. They look for speakers every week. They have lunch meetings. Oh, be warned though, the very first one that I spoke at, it was a Daybreak Kiwanis, I think. And I thought, oh, daybreak, what a positive word that is. I really like that. No, they met at 5:30 in the morning. It was literally a daybreak meeting. But they have speakers come in from the community to talk about everything. They need speakers. They will welcome you to come in and talk about your book, or the process of writing a book, or things you learned along the way, or what it's like to try to run a business of your own. Anything you want to talk about, they'll be fascinated to have you.
Victoria.
Pardon?
Victoria.
Yes.
Let me interject something here about Rotary.
Please.
I've been a member of the Rotary for a long time. Most of the speakers come there with an agenda. They want you to support their cause, kind of thing. So if you come in and don't ask for anything, that's a plus. And also the Rotary Club is very big on literacy. They have a big campaign for that, so you can pitch towards that. But the other thing that I wanted to say is, once you speak at one Rotary Club, you basically can get connected to everyone else in the world by saying, I spoke at the Rotary in Cartersville, and they like me. Can I get on your calendar? And if you've already spoken on one, you've been pre-cleared, and they'll just sign you up.
Thank you. So true. And it's the Rotary is not something I would have even imagined thinking about as a writer when I was writing, but what a great network this is. I was asked to speak at a couple of local Rotaries, like I said, Daybreak. I think it was the Daybreak Rotary, actually, so early in the morning, so torturous. And then I started speaking at some lunch Rotaries, and then I was invited to speak at Rotaries, lunch Rotaries around Georgia. And then because I had travel expenses, they paid my travel expenses. They didn't pay an honorarium to have you come speak. They're not paying you to speak, but they'll pay for your mileage, and they pay well for mileage. So, and that's just their bylaws. And so I then am now paid to speak for those. Now I'm going to be speaking at a regional Rotary, and because I'm speaking at the regional Rotary, I'm also their top contender for speaking at the International Convention of Rotarians in 2017. That's just through that network of Rotary, because the talk I give to them, I am not, as TW points out, I'm not promoting anything. I don't go in and say, buy my book, buy my book. I talk about my story and how my story came to be and how I helped to save this museum and how important it is that we save our communities, and how if we don't know our stories, and this applies to Western writers, if we don't know the stories of our past, we don't know what we can do with the future. And that's a great topic for Rotarians. It's about community service. So thank you for that. Yeah, these are great ways to build it. And then of course my books go with me, and I'll sell lots of books after a Rotary talk because people are interested and because they are nice people who want to support the speakers who have come to them. So be prepared for that. And just a notice here, I'm not sure where this fits in the talk. As you travel around and speak, be prepared to take paperback books with you. And your books may only be in paperback. My books initially came out, my publisher put them out in hardcover first, and then a year later they came out in paperback. And so at first I was lugging hardcover books. Now when I only had one book to sell, that was okay, but that's a pricey purchase. But by the time I had 3 books, somebody having to buy 3 books in hardcover who only heard me at a Rotary and isn't particularly looking for my story, that's a $75 investment. Now that my books are all out in paperback, a much faster sell as I travel to these places. If you are the guest speaker someplace, they know you're coming and they've read you before and they'll buy your book in hardcover because they want the souvenir copy. But if they've only heard you because they happen to attend a Rotary luncheon and you happen to be the speaker, be prepared to have the least expensive version of your book there. Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us, TW. I appreciate that. And great, adopt a local charity. And again, your local charity may be the local library's literacy program or the high school's literacy program. In selfless self-promotion, you're giving of your time to better your community. But because you're doing that, the word will spread about who and what you are. You're going to feel good about what you do, but you're also going to be gaining some notice. It's free, but it's important because we as writers have the wonderful opportunity to communicate in a way that other people don't. And as I said, if you're afraid of public speaking, write your talk and practice your talk. You're a writer. You can put words together well. You can tell a story. You can tell a story about yourself and about life. And that story will impress other people and will benefit others. I love the parable about casting our bread upon the waters and that it will come back to us. But I also believe that our bread that we cast out on the water sometimes comes back toasted and buttered and even better than we expected it to. The Rotary, for instance, one Daybreak Rotary talk got me moved up the ranks to now doing an international Rotary. But I went to speak to the Rotary expecting nothing. It was a service organization, and so I talked about service in the community. I wanted to give back. We have a gift as writers. As I said, we can communicate. We can make a difference in the world. And isn't that really why we all set out to tell a story in the first place? Because something touched us and we wanted to touch other people with that same thing. This is the gift that you can give to the world, and it will make you a success in life even before you become a bestseller as an author. Thank you to the Booth Writers Guild for having me. If there are questions, I guess now's the time. We're getting close on our end time of our seminar.
Let me take a look here.
Yes.
Okay. No, but we should ask people to submit questions at this point through the Q&A button, and you will answer them. We just had that original question.
Right. And the original question, again, was about, will I do some handouts for this? And yes, I will. And so make sure that the booth has your email address and we can send that out. Take me a little bit of time to get that put together, but we will get that to you. This presentation was actually intended to be in a live workshop setting. So what I had originally for this was live worksheets for you to work on with me, but we'll make sure we have some handouts for you. So again, I thank the Booth Writers Guild of the Booth Western Art Museum. What a great resource we have here. And I am thrilled that we have this new resource of the Writers Guild to bring us together and try to help build us as Western writers. I don't see Western writers as a separate genre from historical fiction. I think that Western writers who write about the past are writing historical fiction, and it's important. It's how we learn about our heritage, ourselves, what created us, and helps us learn about what we're going to be. And those of you who are writing modern stories about the West, wow, well, you're creating the future. So congratulations on all of that.
Well, on behalf of the Booth Writers Guild, Victoria, I'd like to thank you for taking this time to give us this presentation. I know that you gave it at the Decatur Book Festival, and everyone can learn from this. And we look forward to getting your notes. And I'm sure that in the emails that I have sent out, and I'll follow up with an email giving them your contact information via your social media, so they can join up for your newsletter and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. I hope to see everybody on the bestseller shelves. Work it. Remember that there's a difference between being a writer and being an author. An author's a business, and you've now got a lot of things to do to get yourself promoted, and it will happen. I guarantee you this, if you've written a great story and you've written it well, you will be published and you will be able to promote yourself, but the promotion you got to do. So go for it, go forth and enjoy and become bestsellers. Thanks so much. Good to be here, TW. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you all for viewing. Okay, if I can find the button on my cell phone, I'm going to end this webinar. It went somewhere, but at least we had power for the whole thing.
Absolutely. It was fun. And I'm gonna sign off here while you find your button. Bye, folks. Have a great Saturday.
Thank you.